It's our responsibility to feel good. It's our responsibility to overcome these triggers. It's our responsibility to overcome the people pleasing and the perfectionism. No one can do it for us. And we are sovereign beings and we are in control of our lives. And so, like, I just encourage our listeners here to just reclaim your power. Like, instead of giving your power away, reclaim it every day, every time you start doing something for someone else, putting down the thing that you were working on so you could take care of someone else.
My villain era is about the so-called villain, the person who gets labeled as selfish, difficult, or problematic the moment they start setting boundaries and choosing themselves. We explore how saying no, protecting your energy, and refusing to people please turns you into the bad guy in other people's stories. But here's the truth. Your villain era isn't a downfall. This is actually your hero's journey. This is for anyone who's been cast as the villain for simply refusing to abandon themselves anymore. Welcome, welcome. I'm Victoria, your host. I'm here with my good friend Cherry, who's my special guest for this episode. And we are so excited to talk about your inner good girl. Welcome, Cherry.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this topic. This
Yeah,
is
me
a
too. As you can tell, I'm hyped and I want to talk about it. So, we've been talking about this kind of thing for a while, and that's why we finally decided that we need to include other people in the conversation. But let me start out by asking you, like, who is your inner good girl, and where do you think that she came from?
Um, so my inner good girl, I am the oldest of three. And so very much it was like ingrained in me from a young age, like, oh, if I do good things, I get the attention, I get extra praise, like, oh, you're such a good girl, that's so good. And then, as life happens, as I was growing up, my parents had a lot of, there were some tumultuous times growing up. And so if I was good, that was one less person that, my mom needed to manage or that was stressing my dad out. And then if I was, extra good, then I'm adding joy into their lives. So not only good like in my at school, but at home and also in sports. And like if I could be someone that they never had to worry about, then life was a little bit easier for all of us. And being the good girl for my sister and brother and wanting to set a good example for them, um, yeah, it played out hugely in my life and really up until the last few years when I really realized, like, oh, I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? One of the things that, you and I have such similar stories in many ways, but you said something. You said, if you're perfectionistic and the good girl, you are one less thing for your parents to worry about. And the thing about that is, it's called parentification of the child. We should, like, we were kids, we should have been running around doing stupid stuff. And instead, like, we were worried about other people and how our behavior affected them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting, as an adult, I'm going back and looking at my behavior and saying, how much time did I spend worried about other people and how they reacted to my behavior? And I'll share with you, like, my dad was not around most of the time when I was growing up. He traveled a lot, and so he would come home for a lot of times it was for a week out of a month. And so I would, like, give him the report. Like, I was a good girl while he was gone. Like, I
Mm.
got an A. I did this. I did that. And I found that even as an adult, like, some of my conversations with him slip into, oh, I did this good thing. And I think that comes from two places. One, like, the whole people pleasing good girl aspect, right? If I do this, then I get this good thing. But then also, it comes from people really not knowing us deep down inside. Because if they knew me deep down inside, they would be like, "Oh my gosh, how did that test go? How are you feeling about this? Whatever." And my youngest is 15, and I know he thinks that I'm like a helicopter mom. And but I ask him all the time, like, oh, what happened with this math test? How did you feel about this? And like Spanish is really hard for him, so he got a B on the midterm. And I go, well, are you proud of yourself? Because I know that Spanish was hard for you. And he goes, yeah. And I go, oh, that's all that matters. You know, these are
Mm,
deeper conversations than I find that, especially with the people pleasing, those are more surface, right? Because we're expecting to get something in return, right? Because I did this, I was the good child, then I'm going to get love, attention, like whatever the thing is you expect to get in return.
yes, hugely.
So let
Um,
me run through.
yeah.
I wanted to share with you a couple things. I want to get your opinion on this. So I asked my boyfriend Claude where people pleasing came from, and he had a couple different categories: childhood conditioning, patriarchal systems, family dynamics, religious and cultural messaging, which I hadn't really thought about that,
Okay.
and the paradox. We're told to be confident, authentic, and ambitious, but only in ways that don't threaten anyone else.
Hmm.
So how do those resonate with you? Like because I had not thought about the religious aspect or that last one, the paradox.
Oh man. I'm like steeped in this like just like the origins of religion and like all of the people that are deconstructing it for themselves, and I'm so curious about it. I find it fascinating. So I listened today about something, um, especially like in Christianity, and just this thought of like the the role of the woman is to be pious and to be good and like the virtuous woman, and that's like how you get to heaven, or that's how like you store up your treasures. So there's just so much emphasis on don't rock the boat and be good, but good being determined by what your husband or like the male says is good for like women. Yes, like yeah.
Girl.
And like, you know, as a young woman, like when I was in college and high school and things, thinking about, oh, who am I gonna marry? Like, what kind of woman am I gonna be? I grew up in a Christian home, so purity was like a huge deal, and that is like ultimate good girl, the pure girl who saved herself for marriage. And men don't want someone who isn't quote unquote pure. And so, like, from a young age, we were indoctrinated with this like purity, good, pious, all white, like, you know, up to the like chin necklines, and like don't show any skin or anything. So like it's ingrained there, and then it's ingrained in, you know, if you're good and quiet at school so that everyone else can learn and so that you can learn. So I just, yeah, I see it everywhere. And then even in society where we have this, oh, how are you? Oh, I'm good. I'm good. You're good? I'm good. And it's
Oh
like,
gosh, I hadn't even thought about that.
yes, like so surface level, but that's like the expected response. That's the correct response, kind of, in society. People don't actually want to know, oh, you're having a tough time right now with like your family or your dog or whatever. Um, so yeah, I see it in so many areas, but then especially this, the last one, the paradox of like, be authentic, be yourself, be this, but only to a certain extent, only so that it's palatable for everyone. And I just find the good girl like persona is such a diluted and watered down version of anyone's authenticity.
Oh yes. So I have to tell you. So have you seen the latest Knives Out movie on Netflix?
Maybe I the way that media goes through me is I watch it and then it's just gone. Like I don't remember.
Okay. Well, this is the only reason that I remember. Like, it wasn't, I don't know, it was long. I was like, God, how long was that movie? You know, where sometimes you want time of your life back after watching a movie.
Yeah, that part.
But there was one scene in there, and it was based around a church. Okay, that was the setting. And one of the ladies at the very end, she says, okay, and of course I heard this, I'm like, oh, I had a little lump in my throat. She goes, I was a good girl my whole life, and what did I get from it? And I was like, Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was like, can you imagine that
Sweetheart.
going through your whole life and being like, I played this role of being the good girl, meaning you're not totally authentic to who you are. Maybe you want to tell someone to go fuck off today. Maybe you want to tell this person, by the way, like stop doing that. Stop saying that to me. Like
Yeah.
those guys that call you sweetheart. You know what I mean?
The image that went through my head was like a quick punch in the face. Like, don't.
Right. It's like those guys. I'm like sweetheart, and I'm like, oh, don't call me sweetheart.
Well, and like the danger for the men that call me sweetheart is like, okay, sure, I'll lean into that, and you can buy me my lunch and my dinner, and I want these shoes. Like, if you're gonna do that, I will exploit that. I'm not gonna be the good girl about this. You think I'm a sweetheart? Sure, sure, you'll see how sweet I am. Like, that's
Yeah,
that's the shadow side of my good girl. Be like,
but we
um,
love her.
we do totally. Because it's like it's not even it's not a fight, it's not a flight, and it's not a fun. It's a like, oh, you think that you can treat me like this? Sure, I have my special sauce. Like,
But that tells me that you've definitely done so much healing, Cherry, that you're like, you've gone through all of the reactions. You're like, we're not doing any of that.
yes, oh yes, I have, and it's quite the journey for sure because we know like so many things play come from being the good girl, from people pleasing to overachieving to like toxic ambition to denying who we are truly. Yeah. So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah. So let's talk about for a second perfectionism, because I feel like this goes along with the good girl, the perfect version of you. And this is how perfectionism showed up in my life. I was the kid that wanted to get A's. I was the person who had the career, right? And I was thinking about this the other day. I was always wanting to move up and da 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 da. But then I don't think I ever had a deep reason why. You know, sometimes we need to ask ourselves, well, why does this matter in my life? Because now that, especially that I have kids, it's like I really don't care about moving up a ladder, right? I want to spend time with people that I love. And that's worth more to me than anything else.
Mm.
So I feel like um, when we're talking about the good girl, there's also this perfectionistic thing that's happening. And I want to know from you, like, how has perfectionism, like, how have you, like, obviously you've been working on yourself for a long time, like me. How did that show up for you? And then what were some of the things that you did to let that piece go?
Mm, that's a great question. It showed up for me again and like wanting to take care of everyone and or if I'm always striving for perfection, then the people around me that I'm trying to be good for are like, oh look, she's trying so hard. So we'll give her more grace. And it wasn't just that I deserve grace because I'm a human and we all deserve grace. It was like if I'm busting my ass over here and they can see that and I'm almost perfect, then like not only does that give me status, but that gets people off my back. I'm less likely to get in trouble, something that you and I talk about a lot, this whole like feeling of like, oh, am I in trouble? Like that was such a scary thing for me. So if I was perfect or striving to be perfect, then I associated that with grace. And it started at a very young age. I mean, I was an all A's girly and then also captain of my volleyball team and like multiple volleyball teams. And I knew that if I was doing well in those areas, then my dad was happier. And if my dad was happier, then everyone at home was happier. So it was a safer environment for me. And so it really wasn't until man I went to college and I grew up very sheltered and I knew when I went to college I was just gonna go balls to the wall like party girl. And I was still in the honors college, don't get me wrong. I mean my freshman year, the year that I got in all sorts of trouble. I also got all A's that year. So I kind of still equated like well, I'm not perfect, but I'm getting all A's in this area, so you can't touch me. And guess what? My parents were like, well, she's getting all A's still. Doesn't matter if she got 3 citations and we had to take her to court. Like, I got in a lot of trouble. And, but, but then I'm still playing out this perfectionist thing. It wasn't until really I hit like rock bottom personally, and I had like it was just that, and it was like I can't be the perfect person anymore. I don't want to be, and if that burns my world down, like okay. And so what it first looked like was me running away to Florida with my boyfriend and like going complete opposite of perfect girl, and it was really, yeah, that's what led me to some rock bottom moments for sure. And it was like digging myself out of that, of like, oh no, I still have this hope and dream of like being a life coach one day and working with women. And how can I work with women to live their best lives if I'm out here living my worst life? But I think I needed to go through that because I needed to break some really strong chains to perfectionism and good girl and be okay with sitting in my shadow, if you will. Um, and then from there, the healthy version of breaking that looks like anytime I start feeling this judgment of like, am I doing it right? Is it good enough? I drop the judgment and literally I say it out loud. I drop the judgment because I realize I'm just judging myself against what? Like, sure, maybe an expectation I have for myself, but let's be gentle. Like, if that's not what it looks like today, that's okay. Drop the judgment. And then I literally picture pouring compassion on my head, just like drenching myself in compassion. And I think that has been actually the most influential kind of practice I can do for myself when I start judging myself in that perfectionism.
Mm, I love that. And that reminds me that many of the things that we think are external that are going on in our world are actually all happening in our head,
Yeah.
right? And so I've been studying Dr. Joe Dispenza a lot, and he talks
Mm.
about if you want your world to change, you have to be a different person. And if you are a different person, it's because your thoughts are different.
Yes.
And what's so interesting is I've had a lot of I've had a struggle with the perfectionistic side of me. And what's interesting is I feel like situations come up that are triggering or that are this or that, and it's not to cause you um, harm or cause you worry or anything like that. If you don't have these situations, you're never going to get over it, right? And so I had this horrible boss. Okay. I had
Mm.
this boss who used to yell and scream at us, like, and which for me, like, I grew up in a house where one of the parents used to yell and scream a lot.
Mm.
And that is, ooh, like my nervous
Yeah.
system just freaks out, right? And so we had this boss, she used to yell and scream. And then the other managers there would frequently say nasty things. And it's so funny. We had this intern who was like, I was a lead. I had one intern, and she used to say, she was like, oh, well, we got yelled at today, but we're getting bagels tomorrow. And she goes, I said, what are you talking about? She goes, oh, yeah, you haven't noticed that the day after she like hands us all our asses that we get bagels. And that's why I call them redemption bagels. Right?
That's so
So
funny.
like I found myself in a lot of these situations where um, it's almost like a setup, almost like it's impossible for me to be the perfect person. And what I have now realized looking back is it's not that like situation was here to make me feel like a piece of shit. The situation was here to make me go, no, I'm not continuing to put myself in this situation where I have this boss who's a horrible human being who's choosing to yell and scream at her employees, which is not a nice thing. Like that's not a nice thing to do,
That's a
right?
wild thing to do,
It's
honestly.
wild. It's wild now that I'm
Straight to
thinking about it,
HR.
right?
Nobody is gonna yell at me. Are you kidding?
Right. I mean, it doesn't matter what you did to literally like scream at somebody. It's just wild now that I think about it. So Yeah, so the perfectionist has kept coming back through to me, and it's been something that's been there. But then I have to ask myself, like I spend a lot of time in meditation, and I'll go back, and I'm not a meditator that like I can't meditate for like 2 hours. My squirrel brain is like, you need to do
Mm-hmm.
laundry or whatever. So I'm like, I try to be more a frequent meditator throughout the day,
Oh,
and
cool.
even if it's 10 minutes, what like um, in my brain, I'm like, but was that true? Like, whatever she was yelling at, like, was it true?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, maybe I messed up on a few charts. Is that worth getting yelled at? This is just an example,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've heard of Byron Katie. She has this whole body of work where she talks about this, and it's, I think, 5 questions. The first question is, like, especially when you're in your head about things. So let's say I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just like, because of this situation, I'm a crap employee, I don't do anything right, and da 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 da. And so she'll say, stop and ask yourself, is that true?
Right.
What's the evidence that that is true? And it's what's so funny is most of the time I don't get past the first question because we have all this stuff going on in our own heads.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a situation right before the holidays. You heard all the details about um, someone in my family, like what they said, da 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 da, and it really sent me back to um, like scared version of me, like obviously a little girl, scared little girl version of me, wanting to people please. How do I make people like me,
Yeah.
right? And it really took me a couple weeks, and thank goodness my family had already scheduled a trip. Is it took me a couple weeks to like come out of that and be like, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, I don't let people behave that way to me. And if we're being honest here, nobody deserves to get yelled at for anything. Like, and if it's someone who wants to be in your life, like, for example, I think about this with me and my kids. I would never just yell and scream at my kids. I would sit them down and be like, hey, so there was a situation and how can we make it better?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
So I think it's so interesting that we end up a lot of times being back in these situations that are familiar to us. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
thing to remember is that's not because like, and especially if you're asking yourself like, why is this happening to me again? How many times have I said that to myself, right? Why is this happening to me again?
Yeah.
It's because the lesson needs to be learned, like, right? Like I didn't learn it, I didn't get over it the last time, and so I need to now.
Mm.
And so for me at least, this perfectionistic good girl version of me, um, I found that she needs to not play a big role in my life. Like she was driving the truck for a while, right? She needs to be in the back seat,
Yeah.
because the real me is not the good girl, is not the perfectionist. The real me is a bundle of all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you mentioned the shadow side before.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard so many people say, your shadow isn't something to get over. Once your shadow is integrated with who you are,
Yeah.
that's when that's the getting over, is that
Mm-hmm.
you accept your shadow, right? How have you let go of this good girl um, in your life? And I know that you were talking about meditating and talking about giving yourself compassion. Those are all great tools. Have you found that it's more like you have to choose yourself every day, or is there a technique that you're using to help and support you?
Yeah, thinking back, really, because I can remember even right now something that my sister said. When I started choosing myself, it was like this awakening of, oh, I need to put myself first. I've been putting everyone else first in my life, and because of that, I've been saying no to myself in so many areas where I wanted to maybe like not, I don't know, go watch a movie with someone because I wanted to work on something, just anything. And I remember my sister said to me, wow, you used to be so selfless. And I was like, ow, And also, I'm on a journey to fall in love with myself right now. So yeah, I used to be very selfless, and right now the journey looks like selfish to other people. And like again, kind of swinging the complete opposite way for a little bit until now I'm like at a balanced place where I feel like I can pour from an overflowing cup, but learning that lesson. So it was really every day pouring into myself, and not only just like, the meditating and stuff, but like the actual practice of like, what does loving myself look like? And it started with getting curious about myself and saying and learning how to say no and going on that journey of, okay, can I say no to this person today? Can I say no to this person? And can I say no with love? And if they don't get it, then I just need to say no and walk away. That's like the big practice, but truly the journey of loving yourself, becoming main character in your life, is what healed that for me.
You can't, and I think that if you're loving yourself more every day, and you are your number one person every day, you can't be this people pleasing person of you who is used to doing all these things for other people.
Yeah.
And I think I think the confusion comes with people a lot. And I've heard this so many times in the past year. Wow, you've changed. And
Yeah,
it's like,
I
yeah, I've
celebrate.
changed. I'm putting myself first. I've
Yes.
changed. I'm saying no to things that feel icky to me. And I think that's one little thing. If someone's going to take anything from this, if they're going to be like, yeah, this whole good girl thing, like how do I get over that? I don't think it's ever something that you're like, oh, I'm just going to put it to the back of my mind, it'll be fine. I think it's every day choosing to love who you are.
Mhm.
And also, for me, it's been huge to catch myself during the day thinking thoughts that aren't awesome.
Right.
And um, it was so it's been so interesting, and I can tell that even my husband has been with me on this journey because I think, like I told you, I was there might be an opportunity in my life,
Mhm.
right? So uh, I was talking with my kids at dinner. I was like, well, if this happens, and my 15-year-old goes, no, mom, it's when.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I could tell that like I have been doing some work. My husband has been too. And it's funny. He was like, I don't think that like we've changed a lot this year. I'm like, no, I think that that little thing is evidence that we have totally changed.
It's huge. That's huge evidence, and your 15-year-old is saying that to you, something that you've modeled for them. That is great work, mom. I celebrate you for that. Yes, that's so huge, and it's like I love what you said, catching yourself with the not awesome feelings, and it made me think of, now I have more measurements of what am I going to say? Is it aligned with my purpose? No? Okay, that's a no for me. It doesn't matter who asked me to do it. Like, does it bring me joy? Is my cup full? Like, having our personal
Yeah.
boundaries is also like a practical way of checking against what someone's asking you to do and whether or not it's for you.
Yes. Yeah. And for me, it's so funny. Like, I've noticed some things really bring up a lot of stuff for me. I've wondered how much of my life I have spent in this like swirling thought process that I'm not good enough. And
Mm,
that's that same energy is like, I have to be the good girl because I'm not good enough. And really, what it is it's masking. It's really pretending to be somebody that you're not 100%.
mm,
And one thing that I've realized over the past year is if I show up authentically as me, and I'm not like I'm not like that person who's like nice. I'm not nice. Okay, you know what I mean? Like that person who's like
spicy.
nice, I'm
Yeah.
polite, and da, 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 da. That was me people pleasing,
Yeah.
right? So if I show up as the real me who is like, girl, I love a curse word, okay, and I will say them a lot. Like I'm kind of crass sometimes, and I say it like it is, and all
Yes, you
of
do.
those things. If that's triggering for you, I'm sorry and adios. You know what I mean? But it's
Not
taken a
sorry.
hot, yeah, it's taken a hot minute for me to be like, that's okay. And that whoever is gonna fall off, whatever um, opportunities or like whatever jobs or whatever the thing, whatever is gonna fall off, whatever comes instead into my life is going to be more aligned with who I am authentically. And I
Yes.
think that is what feels really good.
Oh yes. Oh my goodness gracious. I so agree with you on that. There's nothing like living authentically and then living with the people and the situations and the opportunities that come from that authenticity. Like everything is just turned up a notch and none of it is you turning yourself down. It's you showing up fully and everything's meeting you there. That is
Yeah.
such a beautiful life to live rather than yeah, morphing yourself and all of the like wear and tear to like be palatable for other people. I mean, it's wear and tear on your psyche, on your heart, on your soul, on your being, and you can even see it in your face, your body and your energy when you are living in alignment versus when you're living for other people. And I think that's evident of you. Like you're glowing. You like I love the lipstick and the eyes, and it's been so much fun to like over the last like few months. You're like I got my red lips on today, or like the eyeshadow and the wing. I have to call out the wing, listeners. Victoria's wing is crushing it. Great work, sis. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I think that we need like a, instead of a good bad scale for a day, it's like, let's just evaluate our makeup.
Winging it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And there's nothing quite like being loved for being authentically who you are.
Mm,
There's nothing like being loved for authentically being who you are because especially if you spent a lifetime trying to fit into a box. What I found is that there's no fitting into a box. And I think that a lot of this is historical. If we have our grandmother's DNA in us, somewhere down the line, somebody did have to fit into a box in order to survive, right?
yes.
That is just how our patriarchal system has worked. Like women frequently married because they didn't have any options, they didn't have any money, they needed someone to take care of them, right? But when you light that box on fire,
Yeah.
like there's nothing like it. And for me, it's been such an interesting journey to be like, you know what? I'm just going to show up authentically as me every day and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to do this on my social media, and some of my messages are loud, some of my messages are sassy, and they have a lot of curse words and whatever. But what's so interesting is I've had so many people reach out to me and they've been like, thank you. This is what I needed to hear today. And I think that it's not like because I'm extraordinarily brilliant or something, it's that I'm tapping into that God energy in me that sometimes we don't allow ourselves to do. And I heard something so spectacular the other day, and I want to know your opinion on this, is that when you have a lot of chatter in your head, a lot of ruminating, you can't hear your own guidance or the guidance from God, angels, source, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Yeah, I'm a big energy girly. So when there's a lot of extra chatter, I'm like, ooh, I think maybe I need to do a little energy clearing, which just really can look like meditating, dancing, going for a walk, um, even like verbally, like I release all energy that's not mine and does not serve me, like a bunch of different ways. But having, yeah, when we have lots of like chatter in our head, we're not able to hear what our soul is trying to say or what God is trying to say. And I talk with people all the time on like human design calls and talk about how do they best make decisions. Well, some people, most people that I talk to, it's actually their sacral center. They have this like connection to their gut instinct and they can trust it. But a lot of the people I talk to are like, well, I feel like what my gut's trying to tell me to say, and then I'll go ask, a friend, or I'll do a pros and cons list, and I'm like, hey, that's great. We've been taught that that's like the best way to make decisions. And I'm here to remind you actually that you know what's best for you at your core. You never have to outsource it. You don't have to bring in other energy. And when we start ruminating your pros and cons listing, which doesn't, I'm not demonizing that in any way. I'm just saying we really could trust ourselves. A lot of us could just trust that gut instinct right off the bat.
We
Because
could.
yes, but if you need to remind yourself, remember that the pros and cons and the ruminating and the questions, that's a lot of anxiety and that's a lot of stuff that lives in the future.
Yes, you're right. It's the ruminating is anxiety. And um, I've also heard people say that fear is what's
Mhm.
loudest in our heads, right?
Yes.
Which I think is so true. Go sit in silence and journal for an hour, and then you'll find your gut. Then you will be able to connect because, and I've used many different ways to kind of get clear out the junk from my head. Once all that chatter goes away, things become so much more clear.
Hmm.
And you can really focus on how are you going to live your life that is going to feel good and be spectacular for you.
Yes.
And just in it, my own experience going through this process, not everyone in your life is going to come with you. When you go on this journey, not every, like, some people are going to be like, who does she think she is?
I
Which I know you love that. Who does she
do.
think
I'm
she
like, I
is
want more
energy,
of
right?
that. Yeah.
Some people are going to be like, oh, but she, da 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 da. And it may be time to, like,
Like, yes, she
to
did.
reevaluate. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
totally. Well, I wanted
Um,
to say one thing about the ruminating and the pros and cons list because I know for some people it really is helpful to write things down for clarity. And I would say maybe instead of that cons list, let's write down what is the best case scenario for you in any given moment. Put the energy towards the best case so you can get clear on that part. And maybe that will help with like releasing some of the energy of what's going on. How is it? What do you think about that?
I love that. Do the best case first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like all the way detail it out and then you can make a decision because at least you know what the best case looks like and then your gut knows if that's a yes or a no for you.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool.
And I follow Dr. Amen, and he's a brain person. I don't know if he's a psychiatrist, psychologist, like whatever. He does a lot of brain stuff.
Brain guy.
He's a brain guy. And he talks about automatic negative thoughts. He calls them ants. And he says that just some people, they have more ants than others. And when an automatic negative thought comes up, it's good to classify them. And I could put this in the show notes. They have a whole article on their website about this. And like maybe your ant is like, I found mine is catastrophizing. Like, what is like the wildest, worst thing that could happen, right? And he talks about how if you label it, like me, oh, I'm catastrophizing again. Like that's what I'll say. I'm just catastrophizing again. We're going to let that thought go.
Yes.
That helps a lot because you're just labeling like it's just a thought that actually isn't happening right now.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So yeah, that reminds me of something I do in my morning practice where like in my journaling, it's what my intentions for the day are, and then I list out all of my concerns. Just everything I'm
Ooh.
concerned about. Because I'm not gonna walk around all day feeling the concern but not knowing what it is. I'm gonna look it straight in the face and write it down or say it. And then I can write down what I'm letting go of. And then maybe I can even write down a plan of like how am I gonna work through these concerns. But so start with the best case scenario, but then if we, like you said, like maybe we write down those ants or call them out, because if I feel that there's something going on in my brain and I'm ignoring it, that's also where we can get in a lot of trouble because then it's like brain's like there's something like you just need to open that email and I'm like I'm just not going to open that email, and then later on in the afternoon it's like hey that email's still there, it must be pretty bad because you're really not opening that email. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to. And then like tomorrow morning, it's like, we've got a huge problem. What's going? And then it's like, it was just an email that I needed to open, but I didn't acknowledge it. I didn't like call out that thing. Um, yeah. Anyways, that was a little bit of a tangent, but I like that the calling out the ants or writing down the concerns gives us clarity. It can help with
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that while we're talking about this concept of the good girl,
Yeah.
no one, I mean, I don't know, maybe Hitler, no one really is good or bad.
Right.
We are having a human experience,
Yes.
and we all make mistakes. We have wonderful, joyous experiences, and then we have experiences that are, yeah, we could skip that. It's not so great, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't label us as a bad person. And I think that we, as people, like as human beings, get in our heads and we're like, oh, this means I'm bad.
Right. And we make up these rules for ourselves a lot of times. Good is subjective, exactly like you're saying. Like I'm very good for some people and other people think I'm bad and wrong. Like that you're right. You're so right about that. And it's wild that we can hold ourselves back or put ourselves in a box based on rules that we are making up in our head about the world and the people around us.
Yeah. Or
Mm,
even rules that we didn't make up, that somebody else made up, and now they think that we're bad.
right.
Or, yeah. Or like you've changed. I have heard that recently, and it's like, well, if I have, then big deal, right? That doesn't make me an awful person.
It makes you alive.
It
Like
makes a human being having a human experience, right? As you know, we're talking about like labels. We are all, like I said, we're all infinite beings having a human experience, and our energy is what ends up tying us to other people.
mm,
So if I'm putting up the energy of ho hum, I'm not a I'm trying to be a good girl because A B C and D. I find that like we have people that come into our lives who either have that same energy, they have a victim mentality, they
mm,
have um, or they know that, like that's why like empaths and narcissists have such a parallel relationship. And like a lot of us who are empaths, like, why did I find another friggin' narcissist? This is why. It's because your energy is like a beacon going, hey, you know, she's feeling shitty about whatever. You can manipulate that.
yeah.
But it's when you have an opinion of like, this is all energy, what kind of energy do I want to call in today? Well, I want to feel good about myself. Okay, I can't feel good about myself and have these thoughts that I'm also a piece of shit. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, definitely. And something that you said there makes me, want to call out that it is our responsibility. Like this, it's our responsibility to feel good. It's our responsibility to overcome these triggers. It's our responsibility to overcome the people pleasing and the perfectionism. No one can do it for us. And we are sovereign beings and we are in control of our lives. And so, like, I just encourage our listeners here to just reclaim your power. Like instead of giving your power away, reclaim it every day, every time you start doing something for someone else, putting down the thing that you were working on so you could take care of someone else. That was something also we haven't really touched a whole lot on this, like the nurturing. Like we are at our hearts nurturers. Like we want to
Right.
take care of other people and connect with them. And I have never been as impactful in my life as when I've been nurturing from an overflow. When my cup is completely full, that's when I'm making a huge impact on the people around me in the way that I have always wanted to. So, like, for those of us that are called to leadership or called to nurturing, even as mothers, like, it's so important as a mother that your cup is full as much as possible. I know that's like an impossible task sometimes, it feels, but like,
100%. A
okay,
100%. We were on our recent trip over the holidays. What I realized was at the beginning of the trip, I was still really upset about stuff that had happened. And I found that it was going around in my brain a lot. Da, 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 da. And then as the trip went on, what I found was as I'm like, no, I'm not going to let that live rent free in my head. And as I was able to focus my energy back on me, that I had so much more brain space available, right?
Mhm.
And especially if you find that you're exhausted at the end of the day. Well, could it be that you're ruminating on all this stuff that you really can't control, right? How are we gonna let go of other people's opinions of us and that sort of thing?
Mhm.
Um, but one thing I realized was I could be spending my energy that I have giving love to people in other ways that are impactful to this world. And one thing that we did was my husband and I tried to, if we went to a place to eat, we tried to give people the biggest tip we could.
That's fun.
So like, yeah, so we were at Cracker Barrel and like Cracker Barrel's not expensive, right? And some people tip the bill. That's their rule. And I'm like, okay, I don't know that I'm gonna do that every time. But
Mhm.
I like it was like a $50 bill. I tipped the waitress $45.
That's
You
awesome.
know, I was like, how can I bless other people today?
Yeah.
That is taking some of that pressure off of you to be perfect and just being like, you know what? I am an imperfect human being, and how can I bless somebody else? You know, and if we all were to spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes doing that, the world could be such a better place
Yes.
because everyone is feeling that love.
Yes. And like I love what you said there where it's blessing people because when I think of blessing, that's coming from a place of I'm good. I got extra to give. I can bless you with this. And like that's the energy that I want to be receiving from. Like I don't want to receive something that someone's like I'm giving you the last of what I've got. Like I'm not doing well over here, but I want to give you all of this. It's like, no, I want you to be okay, person.
Yeah.
Like, so even the energetics behind what you're able to give is different when you are giving from a place of like blessing overflow. Like, you're good to go, and it's not this, I have to, it's the right thing to do. It's what you know, everyone else is doing it, so I gotta do it too. It's like, no, you wanted to just bless those people, and
Right.
that's so beautiful, and the energy is so different there. I love that.
Yeah. So that's one thing that we started doing that we came home from vacation. I was like, how can I bless people every day? And it's like, obviously, I can like pray for them and send them blessings, but then it's like, how can throughout my day I bless people? And it was funny, like someone came to do some maintenance on the house. I ended up giving her some tea to take home. I was like,
Oh,
oh, you have a hard time sleeping here? Try some tea. Like, she
that's
kept
so
trying to
good.
pay me, and I'm like, no, just like let me know if you want to buy some in the future. And I was like, this is something so simple I can do to bless somebody else. So,
Yeah, I love that. So it's like you can still, it's not like feeding into the good girl mentality, but we have the desire to give. And so yeah, that's beautiful how we can give without, I don't know, because without that whole good girl trope behind it. Yeah.
yeah, and you brought up a good point that it's like I the entire time I had the intention of I'm going to bless somebody. I never once did it from the good girl. The good girl is I feel like it feels heavy. It feels like there's a an air of like lack and scarcity to it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And for me, like I don't want to live in that. I'd rather live in this place where, and I even said to my husband, I was like, "Wow, we're spending a lot of money tipping people like wherever we go out to dinner." I said, "I know." I said, "I'm gonna say this out loud. I know that God will bless me every time I bless somebody else. It will
Yes.
come back to me. So I'm not even gonna worry about any of the money that we're spending on any of this because it's gonna come back."
Yeah. Absolutely. And that energy in of itself is so beautiful. It's trusting and then giving. Like that's literally how all the good things in life happen, I think.
Yeah, absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
beautiful.
So before we close out, I want to talk about this concept of giving your inner good girl a job. I heard someone say your inner good girl has to die. And I know, and I don't like that. I know.
I'm
And
like,
I was
oh,
like,
little one.
I was like, but if we're looking at things in terms of good, what's the opposite of good? Bad. And maybe your inner good girl wants to be bad for a while. Maybe she wants to date a guy on a motorcycle. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like maybe
You're
she
supposed to
wants to
move to South
combat
Florida
beach with
with
her
a
ball gown.
boyfriend and like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, maybe she
Totally.
wants to get a little bit of trouble. Maybe she wants to be a little spicy for a while. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And so rather than this idea of like, I don't want you to think of like killing this version of you. I want you to think about like, how are we going to integrate her? And for me, that was giving her a job. And so I told her I was in meditation, I was like, hey babe, we don't have to run around and do anything for anybody, okay? But if you feel the need, I would love you to take your skills and why don't you like find me some more opportunities? Why don't that feel good? Like why don't you find some hobbies that like will feel good to us? And so I ended up giving her a task to do. And again, this is all in our heads. So it's like, it's not like anybody's gonna be like, that's the wrong way to do
Yeah.
this. It's like, this is just something that I did. But I
Yeah.
would love to hear your opinion on this. If you've done this before, like what you do instead and all of the things.
Well, first of all, I love this so much. I have not heard of it, like giving her a job. It's so beautiful. Because I've heard the analogy of like, okay, give her the back seat. Like you were driving, you don't need to drive anymore. But to your point, yeah, these pieces served us for a while. They protected us, they served us, they were there for a reason. And so, thank you, good girl. And now, like, let me integrate you into cleaning my house. Like, you're so good at getting things done. Like, do the things I don't want to do consciously. And yeah, I think that's so helpful because, yeah, I don't want to kill any pieces of me. I want to understand them and be curious about them and honor them for the role that they played in my life. And I think that's really beautiful because then it's also not just like sitting around like I'm ready to be the good girl again like, or whatever, but really giving like that role. And like, when it comes to my nutrition, I'm a very good girl most of the time, 80%, 80%. And yeah, I'm like, we're not going to get into that. This month, I'm a very good girl because I've been doing a no sweets January. Um, but yeah, such a beautiful way of honoring that piece of us as well, and letting us be whole. And there's nothing that we need to kill off or like fix, but just shift some things in life. And yeah, that's awesome, Victoria.
There was a video that I watched around the first of the year. This woman, she was so feisty, and she said, stop walking around like there's something wrong with you. And I think that's so, like, as we're talking about our inner good girl, as we're talking about the shadow side, I think that's so important to understand. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing bad about you, right?
Yeah.
It's these labels and how a lot of times it was how we survived
Yeah.
as a kid that we developed things either in our brain or physically developed things to help us have an easier life. And that now that we're adults, like we need to understand that we are whole and perfect as we are. We're
Yes.
perfectly imperfect. We're human. We're not meant to be like absolutely perfect in every way. If so, I might be a little taller. I might be a little taller. That's okay. I'm still perfectly imperfect. So I
Yes.
I loved this video. I'll have to find it, send it to you, where she was like, just stop walking around like there's things wrong with you, because there's not.
Yeah. No, there's not. And something that you said, about the perfectionism and the good girl, that it really oftentimes was just a mask, you know, putting on a mask for covering up and I think actually you did touch on this, like the worthiness or feeling unworthy of love or unworthy of good things without doing something for it, like this transactional thing. And so we can remove the mask, or we can give the mask a job. Yeah, I really love that. And there is nothing wrong with us. We are whole. If there's something that you want to shift in your life, we can shift it. We can work with people that can help us like figure out how to shift patterns, maybe heal some wounds, but we are whole. Yes, that's beautiful.
Yes. So, would you like to give some advice or some tips or like one technique that someone could do to help them integrate this good girl in their lives?
Well, I mean, on top of the give her a role and think about what that is, um, for me, it all came down to getting curious about who am I, and really aligning with authenticity. So every day, like we don't just wake up loving ourselves if that's not the journey that you've been on. And you know, for me, the first step when I was on that journey, now I'm like I'm freaking in love with myself. Like no one can tell me otherwise. But that has been a 15-year journey, and it started with me getting curious about what do I like, what does my perfect day look like without anyone else telling me what it should look like, or including what I would be doing for anyone else. Like let's just remove all service projects and like performative like good girl and or good girl mentality, and then what does that look like for me, and continuing to ask that question and continuing to be curious about who is Cherry at her core. And oh wow, that looks like she is going to say no to that lunch date because she doesn't want to go there, where for the previous 33 years would have said yes, and being okay with that. And then sitting in the uncomfortability, because at first it is very uncomfortable, but knowing like you are held, you are divinely held, because that's you at your most authentic self showing up for yourself, even in the little things. So that was a long answer. I would say get curious about yourself.
Ooh, I love that so much. I think that you can't go wrong by choosing to love yourself more every day.
Yeah.
And I mean, in addition, for me, my answer is in addition to the ruminating thoughts, the one thing that I've started to do is figure out who me, the person now, the person I want to be, what do they like to wear? So I'm sort of revamping my closet. I know. It was like,
So fun.
I was like, I would think I want to be a little bit more bohemian. I think I want to wear like a little bit more wild colors. I think I want to be like XYZ. Because when you've been in a box for a while, like part of the role you play involves what you wear.
Yes.
So, like, I was in finance forever, and so I was black suit, with a blouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boring. So, so part of me loving myself more is like, what what does me, the whole version of me, want to wear today? Do I want to be sassy? Do I want to be like loud with my clothes? Whatever. And for someone who is in this path of integrating their inner good girl, this may seem like such a wild step, but for me, it totally makes sense. So I would say, like, whatever makes sense to you, and you may not know today, but just keep going on this journey. If you're on this journey of like really being authentically who you are, know first of all that people are going to fall off the map. The minute you start choosing yourself and not them, they're going to get mad
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to fall off the map. But then also, the more you choose yourself, the easier it is. And then, like, something beautiful happens after a while. You're like, wait a minute. But if someone didn't love me authentically for who I am, did they love me? And it's okay if they're falling off the map.
Yes. Oh, man, that's so good. I love that. And I love that, like, because when I'm saying get curious, I mean it in all areas and including that, but that's like a really fun first step. It's just like, what is one thing you could add to your wardrobe or switch up about your wardrobe that would make you feel more like you? 'Cause this is all about bringing you back to you and who you were before the world told you who to be, or before we needed to protect ourselves and put on all of this armor. And it's just like stripping down the armor, because like the woman who loves herself completely and fully isn't out here people pleasing. I mean, she
Oof.
might be of service, but it's her first. That's what we want.
Yes, she's not people pleasing. She may still be of service, but she's not people pleasing anybody.
Yeah.
I
And
love
she doesn't
that
give a
so.
shit about good girl. Like, I'm like, the only person I want to call me a good girl is my husband, and that's spicy. So, like, that's it. If you know what I mean. So,
I
it's
love this so much. Cherry, thank you so much for being here for this conversation with me.
thank you for having me. This is such a good conversation and so needed. So, this has been a blast. You rock.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, listeners, please make sure you subscribe. We will have more on my villain era going forward. So make sure you subscribe, and we will bring up more spicy topics like this that make you think about you, how to love yourself more through this villain era.